Success begins in the mind. That's not a slogan or a hopeful phrase designed to inspire. It's a truth as immutable as gravity and as powerful as any law of nature. The man who masters his mind masters his world. And the man who neglects his mind, no matter how fortunate his circumstances, will find himself drifting aimlessly through life, successful only by accident, and even then only briefly. You see, every great life ever lived, every triumph of invention, of leadership, of courage, was first formed in thought. The skyscraper rises not from the earth, but from the mind of the architect. The business empire begins not with capital, but with imagination. The journey to greatness does not begin with the first step. It begins with a decision, a single, powerful, conscious thought. I will. So before we begin, I invite you to make your own decision right now. If these words strike a chord, if this message resonates with something in you, I'd ask you to like this video and subscribe. Not for me, but for yourself. Because when you tune your mind to higher ideas consistently, you begin to build something far more valuable than entertainment. You build yourself, and there's no better investment than that. Let's take a moment to consider the strangest secret in the world. We become what we think about. It's a truth I've shared before, and I will share it again, because it bears repeating until it becomes your own internal compass. What you hold in your mind, with consistency and belief, you bring into your life, not always in the exact form you imagine, but always in harmony with the nature of that thought. Think failure, and failure finds you. Think growth, and growth begins its slow and steady climb into your experience. But most people never pause to think. Not really. They react, they repeat, they conform. They move through life with minds set to autopilot, unaware that the wheel has been in their hands all along. They do not ask themselves the simple question, what am I becoming? And what am I pors och hur gör bon? If success begins in the mind, then failure does too. A man may lose his job, his savings, even his health. But if his mind remains strong, his future remains unwritten. But the man who loses his belief, who allows negative thoughts to dominate his internal world, he has already surrendered, long before the external collapse ever arrives. And yet, there is hope, tremendous hope, because unlike other investments, the mind yields results faster than we think. A shift in thinking today can lead to a shift in action tomorrow, and a shift in action tomorrow can lead to a new life by the end of the year. There is no magic in this, only law as sure as cause and effect. As you think, so shall you become. That's not just philosophy, it's physics of the human spirit. Now let me tell you something that may surprise you. The most successful people I've ever met weren't always the smartest or the wealthiest or the most connected, but they were always the most intentional. They guarded their minds the way a jeweler guards diamonds. They chose their thoughts the way a composer selects notes, carefully, purposefully, always in harmony with a greater vision. They understood something most never learn. Your dominant thoughts shape your destiny. If you constantly think in terms of lack, limitation, and fear, you will unknowingly move toward the very things you wish to avoid. But if you discipline yourself to think in terms of growth, of service, of possibility, then your life will begin to reflect those very qualities. The mind is like a garden. You can let weeds grow or you can plant flowers, but either way, something will grow. You don't get to avoid the harvest. You only get to choose the seed. And here is where most people stumble. They believe that thinking is passive, but real thinking is active. It's deliberate. It's difficult at first because we are so used to letting thoughts arrive like uninvited guests. But once we learn to examine our thoughts, to choose them, to repeat only those that serve us, we become the master and not the slave. We begin to live by design rather than default. The great thinkers of history, Marcus Aurelius, Ralph Waldo Emerson, William James, they all pointed to the same truth, that man is not what his surroundings make him. He is what his thoughts make him. The world is not fixed. It bends to the will of the man who thinks clearly and acts with faith. Now you may be thinking, if it's that simple, why doesn't everyone do it? And the answer, my friend, is the same reason not everyone exercises or saves money or pursues greatness. It takes effort. It takes courage. It takes a refusal to conform to the thinking patterns of the masses. It takes a man who says, I will think differently. I will believe in growth. I will reject fear and embrace responsibility. I will not let the news, the past, or the failures of others determine what I believe is possible for me. And if you can do that, if you can begin with your mind, you will already have separated yourself from 95% of the population. Not because you're better, but because you're awake. Success does not begin with talent, or money, or luck. It begins here, in the quiet theater of the mind, where no one is watching and no applause is given. That is where the battle is won or lost. So I ask you now, what are you thinking about? What are you becoming? Are your thoughts worthy of the life you say you want? Or are you letting weeds take root in the most fertile soil you'll ever possess? Decide today. Begin now. Start small, but begin. Because once the mind is properly directed, success, real success, becomes not just possible, but inevitable. Most people misunderstand the word success. They think it's reserved for the few, the gifted, the lucky, the chosen. But that's not true. Success is not something handed down from a pedestal. It's something built, one thought at a time, in the quiet recesses of the human mind. It's not a product of circumstance. It's a product of clarity. You see, every man is born with the same invisible tool, the ability to choose his thoughts. That, and that alone, is the birthplace of all achievement. The man who learns to use that tool, who sharpens it, who disciplines it, he separates himself, not by chance, but by choice. He becomes a master craftsman in a world of amateurs. Now let me ask you something. Have you ever paused to consider how powerful a single thought can be? One idea, fully believed, fully lived, can start a business, save a marriage, heal a nation. One thought, that's how powerful your mind is. The difference between a man who lifts himself out of poverty and a man who remains stuck is not always the environment. It's often the internal narrative. The questions they ask themselves, the meaning they assign to hardship, the way they interpret their setbacks. One thinks, this is the end. The other thinks, this is where I begin. And that single variation in thought becomes the fork in the road between a life of mediocrity and a life of meaning. This is why success begins in the mind, not because it's trendy to say so, but because it's where everything else follows. Behavior follows belief. Strategy follows mindset. Action follows decision. And so the man who tells himself, I am not enough, will unconsciously sabotage every opportunity that proves otherwise. While the man who tells himself, I am growing, learning, improving every day, begins to rise not because the world has changed, but because he has. This isn't magic. This is law. Think of the mind like a compass. It always points in the direction of your dominant thoughts. If those thoughts are filled with fear, your actions will be cautious, your results limited. If those thoughts are filled with ambition, service, gratitude, and resilience, your steps, no matter how small, will carry the full force of momentum. That's why so many people remain stuck. They are thinking in circles. They replay the past. They rehearse their worries. They dwell on imagined failures. And so what do they attract? More of the same. More worry. More hesitation. More defeat. But if a man will wake up each day and ask himself one question, what is one thought I can choose today that honors the future I desire? He has already begun to change his destiny. Most people will not do this. They will continue to absorb the opinions of others as if they are truth. They will continue to confuse motion with progress. They will continue to chase external rewards without first developing internal alignment. But you who are still listening, you have already proven you are different. You've paused, you're reflecting. You're considering what it means to control your thoughts rather than be controlled by them, and that alone puts you in rare company. Now let me share with you something that I believe with all my heart. You don't need to change your life overnight. You only need to change your direction. If your current thoughts are leading you nowhere, simply pivot. Gently, gradually, but deliberately. Start thinking like the person you wish to become. Speak like him. Act like him. And soon, sooner than you imagine, you will be him. This is not theory. It is practice. It is what every successful person, known or unknown, has done since the beginning of time. They shaped their minds before they shaped the world. They thought intentionally before they acted boldly. So I will tell you again, in plain and simple terms, success begins in the mind. Guard it, feed it, strengthen it. Because once your mind is right, your life will follow suit like a shadow obeying the sun. And if you ever find yourself slipping back into doubt, remind yourself, your thoughts are not facts, they are seeds. Choose carefully what you plant, and the harvest will take care of itself. There's a silent power that belongs only to the man who governs his thoughts. You can see it in his posture, hear it in his voice, feel it in his presence. He does not speak often, but when he does, his words carry weight. He does not react to chaos because his mind is anchored. While others rush, he walks. While others doubt, he decides. While others fear, he focuses. That power, it wasn't given. It was cultivated, and the cultivation began in the mind. You and I live in a world that moves faster than ever before. Information flies at us from every angle. Opinions, distractions, noise constantly demanding our attention. But in this storm of urgency, the man who pauses to think, to reflect, to choose, becomes a rare and powerful force. He is no longer just reacting to the world, he is creating within it. You see, most people do not fail because they lack ability. They fail because they never made the internal shift from being a receiver of life to being a director of it. They wake up and consume social media, news, gossip, complaints, and then they wonder why their lives feel cluttered and uncertain. But the man who wakes up and takes command of his thoughts, even for just 10 minutes, has already begun to win the day. He starts with intention. What kind of man do I want to be today, he asks. What kind of energy do I want to bring into this room? What kind of thoughts do I choose to entertain? This isn't fluff. This is discipline. This is mastery. And this is what separates those who rise from those who remain where they are. Now here's something important to understand. The subconscious mind, the deeper part of you that runs your behavior, doesn't judge what you feed it. It accepts whatever you repeat with emotion. Whether it's doubt or determination, fear or faith, the subconscious will absorb it. And soon that repetition becomes identity. Identity becomes behavior. Behavior becomes destiny. So, what are you repeating? Do your thoughts empower you, or do they weaken you? Are you telling yourself that you're too late, too tired, too flawed? Or are you reminding yourself every day that you are capable, chosen, and being shaped by purpose? The truth is, repetition is the architect of reality. And if that's true, then you and I are not just thinkers. We are builders. Every thought is a brick. Every belief is a beam. Every moment of silence a foundation. So build wisely, my friend. You're not just building a life. You're building a self. I want you to think about a time in your life when you acted with courage. It may have been small, a decision, a phone call, a leap of faith. But in that moment, where did the courage come from? It came from thought, from an idea that said, I can do this, even when everything else said otherwise. That was not random. That was a moment of mental victory. And the more often you win those battles in the mind, the more effortless they become in life. Now let's speak plainly. Your thoughts are either moving you closer to your goals or pulling you further away. There is no neutral ground. The man who understands this begins to choose his words carefully. Not just the words he speaks, but the words he whispers silently to himself. He stops saying, I hope, and starts saying, I decide. He stops saying, if only, and starts saying, what now? He stops saying, I'll try, and starts saying, I will. And in doing so, he stops waiting for the world to give him permission. He begins to grant it to himself. Now let me give you a reminder that may be needed more than ever in our age of endless comparison. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are not late. You are exactly where you are supposed to be if you learn to think as you were designed to think, which is to say, boldly, clearly, and purposefully. The man who wins the future is not the man who knows everything. It is the man who thinks for himself. So if you feel overwhelmed by the noise of the world, return to the stillness of your own mind. Go back to that quiet place within you where your truest thoughts live, where your values are not up for debate, where your purpose is not decided by trends. Sit in that space, ask yourself the real questions, listen to the honest answers, and then decide who you must become. From that place, speak. From that place, act. From that place, live. Because when the mind is sound, the steps that follow are steady. And when the steps are steady, success is no longer a matter of chance. It becomes a matter of time. What happens to a man when he finally understands that his thoughts are the blueprint of his life? I'll tell you, he changes. Quietly at first, slowly, but something inside him shifts. He begins to listen differently. He walks with intention. He takes fewer shortcuts. He asks deeper questions. Not because someone told him to, but because the soil of his mind has been turned. And now the seeds being planted are different. You see, once a man learns the power of his own mind, mediocrity is no longer acceptable. He may still stumble, he may still fall, but he will never again settle for drifting. Because now he knows where the helm is. Let's make something very clear. We don't get in life what we wish for. We get what we expect. And expectations are nothing more than sustained thoughts, repeated beliefs about what's possible. So if you want to change your future, start by changing what you expect of yourself. Do you expect greatness? Not an ego, but an excellence. Do you expect growth? Not perfection, but progress. Do you expect peace? Not from others, but from within. Because if your expectations remain low, your results will follow. But the man who raises his expectations, who dares to believe he was made for more, he begins to draw opportunities, relationships, and momentum that once felt out of reach. People will say he's lucky, that the world opened up to him. But it didn't. He opened up to it. His thoughts changed, so his life changed. Now here's a truth most overlook. Your environment will always try to make your thoughts small. Turn on the news, scroll through your phone, talk to most people, and you'll find fear, scarcity, and doubt packaged in every form imaginable. But that's not because the world is broken. It's because the mind, when left unguarded, will absorb anything that enters it. So be vigilant, protect your mind like a fortress. Choose your influences as carefully as you would choose a mentor. Because whatever you allow in will eventually come out. Think of it like this. Your mind is a house. What kind of furniture are you placing inside? What artwork hangs on the walls? What music is playing in the background? Is it cluttered with old beliefs and broken stories? Or is it clean, open, and filled with purpose? A man cannot live in filth and expect clarity. He cannot entertain toxic thoughts and expect peace. He cannot think like a victim and live like a leader. So clean the house. Remove the ideas that no longer serve you. Redecorate your mind with the thoughts of men who inspire you. Read their words, study their habits, adopt their posture. Walk as they would walk, because when you do, something miraculous happens. Your life begins to mirror the thoughts you entertain most. That is the secret most never grasp. You do not become successful and then think differently. You think differently and then you become successful. Now let's talk about consistency, because none of this matters if it isn't practiced daily. A good thought once a month is like watering a plant once a season. It withers, but a man who feeds his mind every morning with clarity and direction is like a builder laying bricks each day. One by one they add up, and before long he looks up to find that a structure has formed, strong, steady, and unmistakably his. You don't need hours, you need focus. You don't need everything figured out, you need to begin. And you don't need to feel ready, you need to decide. Because once you decide, truly decide, to discipline your thoughts, everything else begins to align. The distractions lose their grip, the past loses its weight, and the future becomes not a mystery, but a map you are drawing in real time. And here's the beautiful truth. No one can take this from you. Not the market, not your boss, not the economy, because your mind is yours alone. It is the one place where you are completely sovereign. And once you accept that responsibility, you become powerful beyond measure. The journey won't always be easy. There will be days when doubt creeps back in, when old thoughts try to reclaim their throne. But the man who has tasted clarity will never again confuse it with chaos. He will remember who he is, and more importantly, who he is becoming. So I ask you again, as I have before, what are you thinking about? What are you allowing to take root in your mind? And is it worthy of the life you claim to desire? Because the truth remains the same, the one that echoes through the words of every great teacher, thinker, and leader throughout time. Success begins in the mind. Not tomorrow, not after the next milestone, but now. There is a quiet dignity in the man who takes control of his mind. He doesn't need to explain himself. He doesn't need to chase applause. He doesn't need to convince anyone. because deep down he knows exactly what he's building, and he knows that everything begins with his thoughts. He is the builder, the architect, the craftsman of his own life, not because he has all the answers, but because he's chosen to think with purpose. And in a world distracted by noise, that choice alone makes him a rare and powerful force. Let me share something that may strike you as bold. Your mind is your most valuable possession. Not your income, not your education, not even your time. Because how you think determines how you spend your time. How you think decides how you use your education. And how you think dictates what you earn, what you believe, and who you become. So if you truly want to transform your life, you must first transform your thoughts. This means stepping back from the rush of daily obligations and asking, what thoughts am I rehearsing every day? Are they thoughts of strength or weakness, of gratitude or resentment, of hope or hesitation? Because here's the truth. Thoughts are not random. They're practiced, and most people are practicing the wrong ones. They wake up and replay the same patterns, the same doubts, the same complaints, and they wonder why life doesn't improve. But how can it when the mind is rehearsing the very conditions it wishes to escape? Now imagine a man who decides to interrupt that cycle. He replaces "I can't" with "I will." He trades "what if it goes wrong" with "what if it goes right." He stops waiting for motivation and begins living by principle. That man becomes unstoppable, not because life becomes easier, but because his thoughts make him stronger. And strength, real strength, comes from discipline of thought. Let me give you a picture to hold in your mind. Imagine your thoughts as a train running on tracks of belief. Each day you're adding fuel to that engine. Each repetition of a belief adds speed. Now if that belief is self-doubt, that train is moving full steam toward failure, frustration, and regret. But if that belief is confidence, resilience, and clarity, then your train is racing toward fulfillment, growth, and success. The destination is determined not by speed, but by direction. So I ask you now, what track are your thoughts on? You can change it. And the change begins with awareness. Pause, observe your inner dialogue. Interrupt it when it no longer serves you. Replace it with something better, not once, but again and again until the new belief becomes the dominant one. This is the daily work of the uncommon man. He is not ruled by moods, he is not seduced by comfort, he is not distracted by critics, because his thoughts have been trained to obey his values, not his feelings. This is not to say that he doesn't feel doubt. He does. But he doesn't dwell there. He recognizes doubt as a visitor, not a resident. He greets it, learns from it, and then moves forward. And that, my friend, is the mark of maturity. The difference between the man who drifts and the man who leads. One allows the mind to lead him astray. The other trains the mind to stay aligned. Now let us speak of vision, because no man can rise higher than the picture he holds of himself. If your vision is small, your actions will be cautious. If your vision is cloudy, your decisions will be hesitant. But if your vision is clear, focused, and elevated, your life will begin to rise in alignment with it. So hold that vision, guard it, revisit it every morning. Speak it aloud, write it down, let it guide your thoughts like the North Star guided explorers. Because when your vision is fixed, your mind will begin to seek out the thoughts, actions, and opportunities that lead you there. This is not optimism. This is direction. The world is full of intelligent people who never rise. Why? Because their minds are consumed with thoughts that contradict their desires. They want success, but they think in fear. They want freedom, but they think in limitation. They want peace, but they think in chaos. Desire without mental alignment leads to disappointment. But desire backed by thought, clear, consistent, disciplined thought that leads to destiny. So do not be fooled by external appearances. A man may seem average, ordinary, unremarkable, but if his mind is focused, if his thoughts are aligned with purpose, then greatness is already at work in silence. And soon the world will see the results of what he first built in private. Your job is not to impress others. Your job is to discipline your thoughts. Because everything else, reputation, influence, opportunity, wealth, flows from that. As you move through the world today, remember this. No thought is neutral. Every thought is shaping something. Your mood, your energy, your focus, your life. Choose wisely, think powerfully, expect the best, and act accordingly. Because success still begins in the mind, and the man who thinks with clarity walks with certainty. There is a rhythm to success, a pace that cannot be rushed and yet cannot be stalled. It moves steadily, quietly, and always begins the same way with thought. Not just any thought, but sustained, intentional thought, focused on growth, grounded in purpose, and directed by vision. And yet, how many people do you know who never pause to think at all? They move through life reacting, surviving, imitating. They look to the left and to the right, asking, "What's everyone else doing?" instead of looking inward and asking, "What am I being called to do?" But the man who thinks, truly thinks, sets himself apart from the crowd, because he is no longer moved by trends or gossip or fear. He has become grounded, and that grounding gives him something most men never experience: clarity. Clarity is not just knowing what you want. It's knowing what no longer deserves your attention. It's the ability to ignore the noise, to focus on the few things that matter, and to let go of the rest without apology. Clarity allows a man to wake up with intention, move through the day with focus, and sleep at night with peace. And it all begins, not with a tool, not with a mentor, not even with a breakthrough, but with thought. You see, your thoughts are the script. Your life is the performance. And the man who doesn't like what he sees on the outside must begin by rewriting the script on the inside. Let me offer you a truth few are willing to accept. The world responds to the man who has already decided who he is, not the man who is trying to be someone, not the man who is waiting to be told, but the man who has already written it in stone. This is who I am, this is where I'm going, and nothing will shake that. Now here's where it becomes practical. The man who has clarity of thought begins to speak differently. He stops complaining. He stops blaming. He stops gossiping. Not because he's pretending to be better than others, but because those words no longer align with his identity. You can tell what a man thinks of himself by how he speaks when no one's listening. You can tell what a man expects by how he responds to difficulty. You can tell where a man is going by what he thinks about when he's alone. That is why I say again and again, success begins in the mind. Because long before the achievements come, the identity must be formed. And identity is nothing more than belief, repeated. So ask yourself, what identity are you rehearsing? What phrases are you feeding your mind every morning? Are they aligned with the man you claim to be? Or are they silently sabotaging everything you say you want? The most powerful man in the room is not always the loudest. Often it's the one who thinks with calm, steady confidence. He's not seeking validation. He's not chasing trends. He knows who he is. And because he knows, he does not need to prove it. That's the man who draws others in without effort. That's the man whose presence changes a room. That's the man whose results speak for themselves. Not because he has something magical, but because his thoughts have been trained, his values are clear, and his mind is aligned with his mission. Let me speak to the man who feels behind, the man who thinks he missed his moment, the man who's been doubting whether it's too late. Listen closely. As long as you can think, you can change. As long as you can think, you can build. As long as you can think, you can rise. You are never behind when your thoughts are focused forward. The only real delay is the delay in belief. The moment you believe again, the clock resets and momentum begins. This is why some men seem to move faster. It's not because they skip steps, it's because their thoughts are no longer split. They have one focus, one standard, one vision. And every thought, every word, every action falls into line. You can become that man, not someday, but now, right now. All it takes is a return to thought, not just scattered thinking, but directed thinking. Thought that serves, thought that strengthens, thought that moves mountains within, long before the world sees a single stone shift. You don't need more motivation. You need more awareness. You don't need more noise. You need more stillness. You don't need more opinions. You need more ownership. Own your thoughts, own your mind, own the direction of your life, because no one else can do it for you. And if you ever forget how powerful you are, return to the simplest truth. The life you want begins in the thoughts you choose. There is something timeless about a man who has mastered his own mind. He moves with a rhythm that doesn't match the chaos of the world. He does not speak often, but when he does, people listen. Not because of volume, but because of presence. That presence, that unshakable calm, is not born in the spotlight. It is forged in silence, in the deep work of disciplined thought. And it is in that silence that you realize the greatest victories are invisible. They happen not on stages, not in boardrooms, not in crowds, but within. The victory over procrastination, the victory over doubt, the moment when you choose a better thought, and in doing so, you change your direction. If you've come this far with me, you already know the truth. Success isn't complicated. It's just not easy, because it asks something of you that the world rarely demands: personal responsibility. It asks you to stop blaming, to stop waiting, to stop shrinking, and to start thinking in alignment with the man you wish to become. You can have mentors, you can have books, courses, tools, and strategies, but until you take hold of your mind and say, "This is mine, I will govern it," the results will remain inconsistent. That's not fate, that's feedback. Every morning you wake up with a choice: to be a passenger in your own mind, or to be the one steering the wheel. And every day you choose consciously, that choice compounds. It adds up, and over time it creates a life. We often look at successful people and ask, what do they do differently? But a better question is, what do they think differently? Because behind every habit is a belief. And behind every belief is a repeated thought. So when you shift your thoughts, the habits follow. The behavior changes, the results evolve. That is why success begins in the mind, and nowhere else. The world is full of external distractions, trends to chase, people to impress, opinions to manage. But none of that will matter in the end if you've never mastered what happens between your ears. You could have all the opportunity in the world and still sabotage it if your thoughts are against you. But you could also have every disadvantage imaginable and rise above it if your thoughts are aligned. It comes down to this: you cannot outperform your self-image. You cannot exceed the picture you've painted in your own mind. So make that picture bold, make it clear, and make it yours. If others don't see it yet, that's fine, they're not supposed to. The vision is yours because the responsibility is yours. Let them watch, let them wonder, let your life explain what your words never could. You're not behind, you're not late, you're not lost. You're simply one powerful thought away from a new beginning. So start again today, right now. So choose a thought that builds, speak a truth that heals, take an action that affirms your purpose. Not later, not someday. Now, because your mind is not a passive instrument, it's a living blueprint, and whatever you draw into it with intention, it will build with precision. You are more powerful than you've been taught to believe. Your life can be more focused than you've been led to accept. And your future, yes, your future is waiting not for luck, but for leadership. Lead your thoughts, and your life will follow. Thank you for spending this time with me. If this message has stirred something in you, if you feel stronger, clearer, more determined, then don't keep it to yourself. Like this video, share it with someone who needs it. And subscribe so that you never forget the most important truth of all: success begins in the mind.